Ohio State basketball is in for a loaded backcourt after making their offseason additions, but are they done yet? Could Jake Diebler bring in some more help in a Michigan guard, former Michigan guard, LJ Kaysen? But the question we have to start with first is if LJ Kaysen would actually help or just force us to push someone good out the door of the Buckeye locker room. A lot of you likely have an immediate reaction of, why wouldn't you want more talent? Or maybe on the other side, no, don't bring anybody from up north over here. Well, stick with me. This is about to be something really fun to talk about because first time we're diving deeper into basketball on this podcast. It's all about the actual math, the actual roster Diebler has built. In this episode of the Buckeye Huddle podcast, we're talking basketball going down, breaking down exactly who LJ Kaysen is, why he's available, how loaded Ohio State's backcourt actually is, and why adding him would be a pretty tight fit that would probably require somebody themselves to leave. Now, we'll talk about the guys who are already here as well, including a budding star in John Mobley Jr., and what all of this means for Jake Diebler in year 3 when expectations are only getting higher. I'm John with Buckeye Huddle. Come on over and check us out anytime. BuckeyeHuddle.com, message board, articles, recruiting, all that good stuff. Come check us out. So, word around college basketball yesterday was that Michigan guard LJ Kaysen had entered to transfer portal. Of course, we already knew that this would happen. I talked about it on an episode that I did about the new coach hire Michigan made on my Big Ten Huddle podcast and YouTube channel. Now, LJ Kaysen, he's a 6'2" combo guard, 3 years left in college thanks to the 5-for-5 rule, coming off a solid sophomore year at Michigan where he averaged 8.4 points and 2.4 assists while shooting 50% from the field. He also tore his ACL late in the season in February and was already planning to redshirt for this upcoming season. But that was before the 5-for-5 rule happened. Under the new rule, redshirting doesn't really do anything for you because you have 5 years to play, or so sitting out a full year doesn't gain you anything like it previously would have under the old system. So Kaysen is likely going to get healthy and play this year, just not at the beginning of the year. Again, most likely we'll see what his recovery looks like, but that seems to be the timeline expectation right now. We already knew most of this because it was reported when Dusty May left for the NBA. Kaysen decided he wasn't going to redshirt under the new staff, and probably that was also because of the new rule and stuff. That's the situation with LJ Kaysen. On paper, he looks like a guy who could come in and contribute right away in a system that values versatile guards who can initiate and score. Could that be in the scarlet and gray next year? I'll be honest. Well, let me explain first before I give the answer. Let me explain though. This isn't happening in a vacuum. Okay, we already have a backcourt that's deeper and more versatile than most people realize. So let's go over the basics of LJ Kaysen with his stuff and how he followed Dusty May from Florida Atlantic to Michigan, was part of the national championship team. He showed flashes as a sophomore, efficient scorer, some creation. Like I said, the ACL injury back in February. I think that was against Illinois. When that game happened, and he was going to use the red shirt in order to get healthy the entire year. But when May left for Dallas and Mike Boynton Jr. took over, Kaysen hit the portal instead of sticking around for a red shirt under the new coaching staff. That's understandable from his perspective, right? He wants to play. And now the question becomes, does he make sense for a team like Ohio State? Now, there's some other teams that have kind of been rumored around, but we don't have anything definite yet. And as we know, transfer portal, stuff like that can always get a little interesting. And the only reason he can go into the transfer portal is because of the coaching change. Nobody else can go in the transfer portal or anything like that. So here's where we have to be honest. Jake Diebler and his staff have put together a really good group in the backcourt already, if I'm just being honest. This isn't me blowing smoke or anything like that. I'll be honest about Buckeye basketball when it's not great. Your number one guy, John Mobley Jr., he's entering his junior year. He's developing into more than just a shooter. In the early summer practices, we've seen him look extremely comfortable in full court transition drills, something that he was told by the NBA that he needs to get better at. He's making plays off the dribble, showing better vision than a lot of people who gave him credit for last season. And the Kentucky transfer, Andrea Yelovich, I believe is how you pronounce it, Andrea Yelovich was raving about him after their first few sessions together, talking about Mobley's unselfish vision, his pocket passes, and lob passes to the bigs as well. Could see some more lob passes this year in Columbus. That would be a lot of fun. And how he finds him multiple times a practice. That's the growth you want to see. Mobley isn't just spacing the floor anymore, kind of like what he's used to doing as a shooter. He's becoming a real connector on offense. Then is the presumed starting point guard, you would think, or at least the point guard most of the time. It's going to be more of a team role, but most of the time point guard. The Cal transfer, Justin Pippen, who he's looked like he is a lead guard this team needs after Bruce Thornton has graduated. What stands out most with him in the open practices is his command of the offense and his passing. He's not forcing scoring right now, but he looks exactly like the facilitator who can get everyone in the right spots. There's also a nice layer with the Diebler connection, right? Jake has history helping his brother develop into a talented, connected player. He's well connected with the family, and they show trust in him with how quickly he was able to get the Pippen brother to pick up the system, get to the NBA, and so there's a lot of trust there with that family. They've also added the junior Curtis Givens III, who has shown high-level defense in early work while already being a proven shooter. If you're not super familiar with Curtis Givens III yet, he's a 6'3" guard who just transferred from Memphis to Ohio State after spending one season with LSU his freshman year and then one season with Memphis his sophomore year. What most people don't know is that he was part of one of the best high school teams in modern day, high school basketball, really. They were an undefeated 33-0 national champion squad in Montverde Academy. They finished number 1 in the country in the Chipotle National Championship game. Givens went off for 24 points on 6 of 9 from 3 with 3 assists and 0 turnovers. Before starring at Montverde in Florida, he actually played his freshman and sophomore years at Memphis University School back home, and he was such a good teammate that he won the Unsung Hero Award for the basketball team at Montverde Athletic Honors, and he loves Ohio State. While LeBron James is his favorite basketball player, his favorite non-basketball player outside of basketball, just so happens to be Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud. That's an excellent choice, Curtis. Great choice on your favorite player there. He's a low-maintenance, high-character kid who's been through a couple of transfers already, but he seems to have found his footing at Columbus. I think he could stick around for the rest of his career in Columbus. And now he's bringing that experience and that high school championship pedigree to Ohio State. A very cool story, one that I'm glad that is on the team. And then you have Jimmy Williams from Duquesne. He has been one of the more consistent scorers in team drills, knocking down threes, getting to the rim. He's kind of a guy who can score in all kinds of different ways. He was the team's leading scorer, or second leading scorer, at Duquesne last year. What's really cool about Williams is that he's from Salon, Ohio, and multiple people close to the situation have said he took a lower financial offer to come home to Ohio despite not being guaranteed a starting role. And that tells you something about, it tells you something important about where this program is headed. Ohio State is investing more than they have in a long time into Ohio basketball talent, and it's starting to pay off in recruiting. Bringing a guy like Williams back builds real goodwill in the state. And on top of that, all of that, with the young pieces, you have the reclassifying 5-star and LJ Smith, 5-star in some services, not all, and is already on campus and looking more comfortable every day. And true freshman Anthony Smith, the 5-star, true 5-star. He's like a top 10, top 5 player in the country and has been flashing on both ends. Amari Bynum is also stepping into a leadership role alongside Mobley, learning from how Bruce Thornton carried himself last year. They want to try and carry themselves and have the same kind of leadership mentality and structure. The point is this: the backcourt already has size, shooting, creation, defense, and a nice mix of experience and youth. They've built it intentionally, which is nice, but LJ Kaysen is talented too, right? So anybody who's got talent should be able to fit into the room, which means we have to talk about the actual numbers. NCAA teams are limited to 13 scholarship players in basketball. Now, from everything we've seen this offseason, Ohio State has been very deliberate about how they've used those spots. They brought in multiple transfers who can contribute immediately. They landed high upside freshmen like Anthony Thompson, and they made the decision to reclassify and bring in LJ Smith early. Diebler has been open about it, about how they need another piece in the backcourt, and once they felt like Smith could impact the winning season, they moved forward, and boom, that's your piece you got in the backcourt. That reclassification essentially used the final scholarship they had available. I normally don't like reclassification, especially for a late roster addition. Sometimes it feels like you have, no other option, but I like the Smith kid. I think he is smooth and will be able to contribute on the court this season for the Buckeyes. So with that addition, the Buckeyes are, at or right at 13 scholarship players. They are right at, I apologize, they are right at that 13 scholarship limit. They have a couple of developmental guys operating more like traditional walk-ons who don't count against the total the same way. So if we want to add LJ Cason on scholarship, something's going to have to give. Someone currently on the scholarship roster would need to somehow either lose their scholarship or leave, or something, it would have to happen for them to actually be able to leave too, because the new transfer portal rules don't just allow you to go do that. I don't think that is happening as easily as some might think, and it doesn't seem like Diebler is the type of guy who would just kind of kick a player off the team and, go for it. So it's a really interesting situation. That's just the way I see it, and that's totally fine with me, because from where I sit, we shouldn't want anyone to leave right now. This backcourt is pretty loaded. I mean, do they have a Bruce Thornton in the backcourt? No, but they have a whole lot of potential. They have some really good players, some really good pedigree. Adding Kaysen would be a luxury move at this point, but it would come at the cost of breaking up a group that is already gelling. The staff has put together a roster that has good depth at every spot in the backcourt. Forcing someone out just to bring Kaysen in doesn't make a ton of sense when the current group already gives you multiple creators, shooters, and defenders. That's why I keep coming back to the same conclusion, that it would be a tight fit and it would probably require someone to leave first. Right now, there's no obvious reason to make that move, and that is, good news, because it means that Ohio State basketball is where they should be at. It means that they are getting the resources that they should be getting. You can feel it in the roster building. You can see it in the roster building, and what athletic director Ross Bjork has said publicly. Diebler has been given more tools to compete at a higher level in his third year. Does that mean he has the most, NIL in the Big Ten and everything like that? No, but he has more than he has had before, and they're investing into the program. That's exciting, but with more support comes more expectations, and that's fair. Diebler's entering year 3. The grace period is shrinking. Last season, they snapped the NCAA tournament drought and showed real progress late in the year. Unfortunately, they lost to TCU, but that was a step in the right direction. But now the bar moves. This team needs to win a tournament game at the very absolute minimum, right? Getting to the Sweet 16 would be a huge statement. That would be awesome, and I think that would buy a lot of really goodwill to the fans. But winning at least one NCAA tournament game feels imperative at this point for the program's ascension, for Diebler's reputation as a head coach, and for fans to get fully bought in at this point. But here's the challenge. This is going to be a young roster. Only 2 players, Jimmy Williams and Josh Ojuanwa, will be in their 4th or 5th year. And Jimmy played his first 2 years in JUCO. So if we're being honest, he's still kind of in his 3rd year player, but he's already played at JUCO too. So everyone else is a junior or younger. Jimmy is technically a junior because they get rid of the eligibility from the JUCO and stuff. It's all messed up. It's so confusing now. But some fans won't give Diebler much benefit with a younger team, and they won't, benefit of the doubt because of the age of the team. But that's the reality of coaching at Ohio State. Winning cures a lot, but losing in the first round again would be a tough pill for a lot of Ohio State fans and the Ohio State team to swallow. The good news is that the roster is good enough to be a top 20 team in the country if everyone stays healthy, in my opinion. The talent is there, the depth is there as well. You can afford some little injuries here and there, but you really can't afford a season-ending injury to any of your big guys. So the pieces fit together well if they can stay healthy and continue developing, separating from the middle of the pack in the Big Ten and making a real run in March very realistic. That would move the needle. Winning a tournament game and showing that this program is trending in the right direction and continue to do so even after losing Bruce Thornton would gain a ton of trust from the fan base, even from a young team, or even with a young team. One thing that keeps standing out in the preseason of this young Ohio State basketball team is John Mobley Jr. He is developing beyond just being a shooter. We've seen him look extremely comfortable in full court transition drills. He's making plays off the dribble and showing better vision than a lot of people expected. The Kentucky transfer, Andrea Yelovich, was raving about Mobley's unselfish vision and how he finds him with the pocket passes, the lob passes, multiple times of practice. That's the growth you want to see from the junior Mobley. Mobley isn't just spacing the floor anymore. He's becoming a real connector who can initiate and create for others, and at the right time too, with Bruce Thornton going on to the NBA. If he keeps if he keeps taking steps like this, he has a chance to be a real problem for Big Ten defenses this season. You see, a lot of the national narrative around Ohio State basketball right now is that it's still a young team figuring out their way. And while that's technically true, we only have 2 players in their 4th or 5th year. That framing misses something important. This roster is already deep and talented enough. They are deeper than they were last year, and I think they could use that depth to be a top 20 team if everyone stays healthy. The backcourt has real versatility. The front court has size and athleticism, and the staff has been deliberate about building a group who can compete right now and not just in the future, because in college basketball today, you don't have the luxury of the future with the transfer portal and everything else. Everybody's going in for right now. It makes so much better competition. The expectation in year 3 for Jake Diebler isn't just to make the tournament again. It's to win a game in the tournament once you get there. Fans aren't going to give a ton of benefit of the doubt just because your roster is young. Winning a tournament game and separating from the middle of the Big Ten is what moves the needle. So what does that, leave us with LJ Kaysen? On paper, he's an intriguing player with proven production and a skill set that could fit. In reality, Ohio State's backcourt is already in a really good spot. We've used our 13 scholarships intentionally, and LJ Smith was the final piece they added to round out the groove. Forcing someone out just to add Kaysen doesn't feel necessarily like Jake Diebler's type of MO, doesn't feel like the type of move he normally makes. Instead, the focus should be to stay on what's already in Columbus. Mobley continuing to grow into a more complete player. Pippen commanding the offense. Williams and Givens providing reliable depth for the rest of the team in the backcourt. And young guys developing. This is a roster that can win a tournament game and take another step forward. Thanks for joining me here at the Buckeye Huddle podcast. Catch us tomorrow for another episode at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And please don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Give us a 5-star rating and review on the podcast platform you're listening on, if you would do so as well. And drop your take on whether the Buckeyes should actively pursue LJ Kaysen in the portal, or do you think they're good with what they got and they can move on from there? Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you tomorrow. Go Bucks.